In this video, I thought it would be appropriate to talk a little bit about the VIX, considering that today is election day. Now, the VIX is a volatility index, all right? It tells us how wild and crazy the markets are going to be. And you might ask yourself, well, how is this ranked and how is this worthwhile? The first thing we want to know is, why markets are crazy, what's going on, and how crazy they are in comparison to past historical markets, right? And the reason we want to know that is primarily when we're options traders, we want to know what the volatility of the market is because that increases or decreases the premium that we're paying for any individual option. So you can see down here in the lower table that we have an implied volatility index right here built into the table itself. So this is telling you the implied volatility. For those of you who have taken my class, we've had a long discussion about implied volatility. I won't go into it at this point, but be aware that there is implied volatility on calculated on each individual strike price of each option, and the implied volatility is what changes the theoretical value versus the premium and determines and helps determine, or it's one of the calculations that determines whether you're going to be paying a premium or a discount for your particular premium versus the theoretical value. So one of the things that we want to look at is the volatility of the overall long-term market. Now, this is the VIX. And a lot of people will trade the VIX on a short-term time frame, but for the most part, for our purposes, we want to look at the VIX on the daily chart. So we're going to come in here. Oh, did you just see that? The VIX just jumped really quite heavily on the 5-minute chart. So let's come in here and take a look at the VIX on the daily chart. Now, this is where the interesting stuff happens, okay? Because this is what's been going on. The volatility of the market has been swinging through these highs and lows. Now, it's interesting to come back and look. Let's come all the way back here. This is Corona, all right? This is the coronavirus. Now, notice that the S&P fell hard during this time frame, but the volatility index or the VIX rose hard. So that's generally what happens. This is kind of an inverse, index compared to the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq or something like that, right? So this is an inverse market. A lot of people will use this as a hedge against the overall market. So if they think that the market is going to fall, they may have some options in the market that say they're going to buy some put options, if the market's going to fall, but then they buy some call options over here on the VIX and ride the VIX going the other direction. So a lot of chicken wing traders, and will do this. A lot of spread traders will do this. This is kind of a hedge. They can put on a hedge just in case something happens in the market and the market takes off and gets very volatile, and their positions over on the other markets are at risk. So this is kind of a hedging tool. But what's interesting to me is being able to come back and look and see what caused some of these high volatility timeframes. Now, this obviously we know what this one was. This was the workup to the pandemic coming through and the economy being shut down. So then, of course, as things started to gain strength again, it started to fall. Now, what causes all these little jumps and bumps in here? As we come in and we take a look at these are actually quite some large moves in the market. If it wasn't for the scaling of the market and this great big huge move here, you come back in time and you could see that these are some rather large moves in the market pre pandemic. So you can draw your historical lines across here and you can see kind of some of these peaks where some of these high points were. And so if we come back across and we, ignore the pandemic, we can kind of see how volatile this market still is. See, it's very volatile compared to what was going on prior to the pandemic. This is these high peaks on the VIX prior to that. And so what are these runs? How come this market took off and did this? For me, it's very interesting to look back and see what it was that caused these types of things and then kind of be aware of what's going on right now. Of course, this is the election, so this is the run up to the election. We know that one. That one's an easy one for us right now because we're in the middle of it right now. So this is a classic, buy the rumor, sell the fact. And so you buy the rumor and the market rallies. The fact is we're having the election today. And generally after that, and the known information is what will cause the market to fall. It's the unknown that causes the market to rally and have volatility. It's the known that causes the market to fall and come back down. So what was going on during this time frame? Well, we don't know, right? Because unless we go back and look in the news, we don't know what it was that caused these, and to see how that news or event might have impacted what's going on now, or how it would have been any difference, or why is this such a large impact here compared to the elections right here? What was this large impact here? Now we got a couple of tools that I want to introduce you to over on the internet that you might not be aware of. Many of you might be aware of these, but I want to bring them to your attention now. The first thing I want to do is I want to come back and I'm just going to look at these this September time frame I'm not going to go back and look at the June timeframe. I'm going to leave that up to you. Let you do that yourself and go see what caused this. But I'm going to show you the tools on how to do that. This one here is the September timeframe, and that one big, huge bar there in particular was September 3rd. So we can look and see what was leading up to September 3rd. We can see what was September 3rd. We can see what happened on September 4th. And then as the market starts to fall back down, the volatility starts to decrease, why the market started to decrease. Now, there's two tools that are very interesting to take a look at here. And I'm going to bring this onto the screen. I'm going to go to this one here first, and then we'll go to the Wayback Machine second. So this is called Win Calendar. And what's really cool about this, you see down the right-hand side, you have this calendar that comes in, and you can come in and you can click on a specific date. Now, I've clicked on September 3rd, and we remember over here, September 3rd was this great, big, huge, long day. So why was September 3rd such a big day? Well, we come back here, and if you click on September 3rd, it pulls up what was going on September 3rd. And, it gives you a couple of statistics, but more interestingly, it even tells you a couple of tweets. What are the most popular tweets of the day? Dan Rather comes in here and says, a reminder, it's illegal to vote twice, but not to impeach twice. So whether you're a Trump fan or not, that would be something that you'd be looking at on the Twitter sphere. But more interestingly to me, not quite so much Twitter, I'm not much into that, but more interesting to me is the news headlines. So this is what's happening on September 3rd. So the big news is Pelosi fights back. The salon owes me an apology for setting me up. If you remember, Nancy Pelosi on that day was caught getting her hair done in California when everybody else was supposed to be locked down without masks or with masks, and she's in getting her hair done in a salon without a mask. And so that was kind of, a big news, but I don't know if that's what would cause the market to run and go crazy like that, right? So we could keep looking down through here. Trump encourages North Carolina residents to vote twice in test mail-in system. So that's a headline from NBC News. Of course, hindsight tells us we know that that's a clickbait headline. We know that wasn't true. If you go and listen to him, he doesn't say to vote twice. He said to vote, and then if you're not sure that your paper vote, your mail-in vote went through, to go down and to the polls and double check and make sure. And if it didn't go through and they don't have a record of it, then to vote again at the polls at the record place. So it's an interpretation of what he said. And I'm not sure that would cause it to take off and go crazy like that, the volatility. Although it might, it has something to do with the markets, and that might have been what caused it. Nancy Pelosi accuses the salon. Another headline from another. That's the Daily Wire, of course, saying that. And then Dwayne Johnson confirms his entire family tests positive for COVID-19. I'm not sure who Dwayne Johnson is. Trump told Sarah Sanders to take one for the team. That was big headline news. Kim Jong Un. And then Tom Seaver, the greatest Met of all time, died. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler moving from residence after far left extremist attacks. Trump orders feds to begin processing to defund the 4 lawless cities that have cut police budget. There was a lot of rioting going on at this time, if we remember. Trump America, who dies in, we are losers and suckers. We all know that was ended up being completely false and a false headline. But that, a number of these things all coming together could have been what caused that market to be a little bit volatile. NBA ratings crush continued. And this, of course, one thing this doesn't do. Let's see, California passes bill to soften criminal penalty for LGBT adults who have sex with underage teens. I'm not exactly sure if that would cause the market to take off and get all volatile. But some of these other things might have a little bit contributing factor to it. So I like to go back and look through this machine here, this website, because it gives you the headlines on that day. And you can kind of, judge whether it was a headline that caused it or something else. There's also one thing that this doesn't take into consideration is the government news, or the government, not necessarily the government news, but the reports, the government reports that come out. And you know that we always go and look at the government reports to see what the volatility is going to be on the market. So there could be some event, like the Fed chair might be raising interest rates or something. And you would generally expect to see that in this list here, what happened on September 3rd in the news stories, whether the Fed raised or lowered the interest rate. But we don't see anything like that in here right now. So let's come over and look at the Wayback Machine, because the Wayback Machine is really cool. What you can do is, this is a good way to verify what somebody said or what somebody did on their website. If we come down here to September 3rd, notice in the Wayback Machine, we have a search term. Now, this is a way of looking at the internet. This is an internet archive. So you can go back and look at what websites looked like years and years and years ago. Look at how far they've been saving this information. Now, I went into foxnews.com. So I wanted to see on September 3rd what foxnews.com was saying. So we come down to September 3rd, and you can even pick the date or the time of the day. So we're going to come down here, and we'll just say 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:14. So we go ahead and we click on that. And the Wayback machine is now going to go, and it says it's waiting for the archive. And you can see down here in the bottom left-hand corner. And this is kind of where I watch and see what the software is doing. So we're going to wait for the Wayback machine to go back and retrieve. And here it comes. It's going to retrieve what Fox News' website looked like on that day at that time of day. And there you go. So the big headline news for Fox News on that day was Nancy Pelosi's hairstyle. So that's the big headline news on Fox News on September 4th. So as you can see, this is a really cool tool. You can go look up any website you want and see what they were looking at or what the website looked like at almost any time of day. So this is a lot of fun. This is a great tool to be able to go back and look at the markets and find out what was going on in any particular day, and especially when looking at the VIX. All right, and I will mention one thing. You won't find the VIX in the demo account. If you go over and you're in the demo and you try to pull up the VIX, this chart generally doesn't pull up. And I think it's because demo is not allowed to see this. You have to pay to get this. And so if you have a live trading account, that's where you're going to find the VIX at. All right, so there's a VIX, and there's a couple of websites for you to play with to go back and take a look in time and history and see what was going on in any given website or time in history.